is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path.
A reading from the letter of James, chapter 1, verses 19 to 27. Know this, my dear brothers and sisters. Everyone should be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For anger does not accomplish the righteousness of God. Therefore, put away all filth and evil excess, and humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your souls. Be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deluding yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his own face in a mirror. He sees himself, then goes off and promptly forgets what he looked like. But the one who peers into the perfect law of freedom and perseveres, and is not a hearer who forgets but a doer who acts, such a one shall be blessed in what he does. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, his religion is vain. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. The word of the Lord.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, chapter 8, verses 22 to 26. When Jesus and his disciples arrived at Bethsaida, people brought to him a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. Putting spittle on his eyes, he laid his hands on the man and asked, "Do you see anything?" Looking up, the man replied, "I see people looking like trees and walking." Then he laid hands on the man's eyes a second time, and he saw clearly. His sight was restored, and he could see everything distinctly. Then he sent him home and said, "Do not even go into the village." The Gospel of the Lord.
My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, my dear children and my dear young generation, today, Wednesday, 16th of February 2022, the Gospel for our reflection is again from Mark chapter 8, verses today 22 to 26. Today we encounter a miracle taking place at the pool of Bethsaida. A blind man is healed by Jesus. So it is an encounter of Jesus with a blind man. We can also see that it is an encounter of the blind man with Jesus. So therefore it is an encounter. In an encounter of knowing one another, relating one another, Jesus relating to the blind man. The blind man is relating himself to Jesus in an encounter of sympathy and plea. The blind man needs healing, and Jesus is there to heal him. Now, unlike in other passages, we come across something different here. What the blind man is not really exalted, or rather underlined, given much more prominence in the text. But instead, Jesus is given in prominence. He is given and presented to us with prominence because of the actions, because of the concern that Jesus is showing, manifesting towards the blind person. Now, look at the reading very carefully. If you read, you will find that Jesus takes the blind man by hand. And he takes him away outside the city, takes him away from the city. Then he splits on his eyes, and he puts saliva on his eyes. He spits on his eyes. Then he imposes his hands on the blind person. And this is a real part of the liturgy. It is a liturgical action where he takes the person by hand, takes him away from the city, he spits on the person, and he imposes the hand on the person, and he heals the person. And then there is a kind of a request. Don't go back to city, because in the city you have people who don't believe, who are asking for signs, and they cannot believe what has happened. Therefore you go back home. Tell the people at home what has exactly taken place in you, that God has healed you.